Hey friends, welcome to this Instagram Live. It is Monday, it is 5 p.m., and I'm going to be joined by my good friend, Amanda Wheeler. Wheels, as some of you know, is a coach at Mark Fisher Fitness. She's been one of my mentors and best friends for, I don't know, like 6.5 years now. So I'm really, really excited to get her on the call. Wheels is here, so what I'm going to do is invite her to join us. And now we're going to be able to chat with Wheels about some of the fun little adventures that she's been up to. Wheels, what's up?
Awesome!
Okay,
So nice
so
to see your face.
hi. I just gave an intro. I'm going to say hi to some folks as we go. I basically was like, hey, my friend Amanda Wheeler is going to be joining us on this call, on this Instagram Live. Wheels, I asked you to come on this live so we can talk about some of the recent adventures that you've been having. What is your biggest physical exploration, your physical adventure since quarantine has started?
I bought a bike last weekend.
Yes, bikes.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
I love me some bikes. I think that the number that stood out in my head the other day was when you texted me and you were like, in this first week of having a bike, you rode 100 miles in your first week of having a bike.
Yeah, we did we did over 100. Yep.
That's bonkers. That's so fun.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I've lived in New York City for almost just under 10 years. And I've been like mildly terrified, right? So like ride in the city and be out with the cars, and it just seemed like a lot.
Yeah.
And I loved riding bikes as a kid, right? It was like a fun thing that you did, but there weren't
Right.
a lot of cars and stuff on the street. And last weekend was like, I need to get out because I also haven't been moving like at all, and eating a lot
Right.
of snacks. So many
So
snacks.
many snacks, right?
Yeah, and we bought them just to actually be out last weekend. And when we first got on, I was like, oh my gosh, like I felt like a kid again. I
Yeah.
felt like it didn't feel like, I mean, I was working hard, but it did not feel like I was working out. I mean, I was like, out of breath because I was so out of shape, but it was such a playful, like wonderful thing for my mental health. It's been amazing.
Yeah. Rad. That's so awesome. That is so awesome. I feel like between like our text thread in the last week has been hilarious because I feel like every day you go on a bike ride, you're like, hey, here's the bike ride that I went on. I'm like, fuck yeah. What physically, what does it feel like when you're on the bike? Like, are you thinking fitness wise? Are you thinking no?
No,
Doesn't
not at
know.
all. I mean, I say no, knowing that like when you're riding back up into the heights and you have to hit all those hills, like there are times when I want to like keel over on the bike and have to sometimes like get off and stop just because
Yeah.
my fitness level over the last couple of months, especially aerobically, has been shit. I mean, terrible.
Yeah.
So it's only when it's like, oh my gosh, I have to get up this hill. And I don't even think about fitness. It's just like after I get to the top, I'm like, oh, this is
Right.
fitness, But
Right.
like when we're out riding, it's like fitness is the literal last thing on my mind. It's like you're just out exploring and being active. And on Sunday, we ended up riding like, I think 31 miles, just under 32 miles, just down
Yeah.
into the city. And we were out, we took our time. It wasn't like a crazy ride, but we were out for like 3.5 hours. And I could
Right.
have stayed out for another 3.5 hours. Like it was just so fun to explore, just be out and like just riding around. It was so awesome.
What was I think you texted me the phrase, tell me if this is right. My body hasn't caught up to my enthusiasm yet.
Yes.
Is
Yeah.
that what it was?
Yeah, totally. I feel like every day I'm like, oh, I want to ride my bike today. Like I just want to go outside and be on it. And I'm her. Yeah, I like we talked about going on a bike ride today, and I was like, I have to take a day because it's like my hip flexors, and it's also like the pads on my feet are getting used to it.
Right.
And it's like some of the ankle stuff too, where it's like just like the
Right.
balls in my feet, like where I'm like pushing down the pedal. It's just like,
Yeah.
after hours and hours and hours, it gets to be a lot. So
Right.
I'm not, there are a lot of things like conditioning wise, not even like aerobically, but just like, oh, my body needs to get used to pushing on that pedal, like on that same spot in my foot every single time I
Right.
push
Right.
down. Or even like getting used to the ass is like,
Where it's just like your butt is just like on the
yeah.
seat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like after you get on, like because after the first day we rode, obviously like the second day was so fucking sore, where it's like, oh my God, it hurts so bad. But once you're on for like 5 minutes, like you get used to it. But
Yeah.
that too is like still, I'm like still every day, I'm like, oh, there it is. Like just sitting down, I'm like, I can feel it. I can feel it. But it's worth it. But it's like, yes, I am very enthusiastic to just be out and exploring and be out for a very long time.
Yeah.
But my physical capacities are not there yet.
I love that. It's funny. Katie and I went for a bike ride. We went up to the South County Trail up in Yonkers on Sunday, and it's like it's paved, but it's like there's some pretty bumpy spots. And Katie was like, "Doesn't this hurt your butt?" And I was like, "No, I've got a taint of steel. I've been riding for like 6 years now. Like my butt's used to it." But I feel like there's that. There's the thing with calves. She asked me the same thing. Katie was like, don't your calves get beat up?" And I was like, no, not really. But like part of learning a new activity is giving your body enough exposure that it figures out a way to make it easier, right? Like, like and I'm sure that we've given this advice. I know I've given this advice when somebody asks about a certain single modality type of exercise, bike riding, running, swimming. They're like, well, don't you lose less weight over time? And for me, that like that con in the fat loss category is a pro in the physical endurance category, right?
Yeah.
You want to be as efficient as possible. And it's interesting to like hear you go through that as somebody who knows these things, to be like, hey, my body has not yet learned how to do this efficiently.
Yeah, totally. And it is just like you said, where you're like, you've been riding for 6 years, where it's like,
Yeah.
yep, no, your butt doesn't hurt anymore. Like your calves, like things just don't hurt anymore, which is where you want to get to if you want to do something long term.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of that too, like I think about like people just learning how to play guitar and their fingers,
Right.
their fingers are just like, oh my gosh, it hurts so bad. But then after a while, it's like,
Yeah.
you just build up calluses and you're good. But it's like getting past that initial week, month, couple months to be like, nope, this is solid now. And then you're consistent enough in the beginning to like, sit on the seat every day and just like get used to it. And like, then it's fine. But it's like, I do think it does take a lot of consistency at the beginning. And the guy, when we got our bikes actually, because they are like quite small seats, and he's like, you can get a bigger one if you want. He's like, ride your bike every day for 2 weeks. It's like, just get on and ride for 2 weeks and you'll get used to it. Like, it'll be fine, but like, you got to push through that first little bit. So we're doing it, right? We're just like getting on riding, but I think for a lot of people, it is just pushing past the initial discomfort of like, your body's just not used to doing a thing.
Yeah. It's funny because other than the references like to the seats and when you said that you got your bikes, I feel like that entire section of your explanation none of that was about fitness. That was basically all about practice as like a philosophy and skill as a philosophy that could be like making, I see Caitlin Maxwell, that could be making wigs, right? That could be like playing an instrument. That could be like, if you're playing saxophone, if you're playing drums or something, it's all it is skill and just the consistency of like getting on the bike, like sitting in the seat and doing the work.
Yeah.
Which is like fascinating. So now that you've had a bike for a week, and you're still super excited to ride, which is amazing. Hi, Caitlin. What do you think, where do you think it's like riding a bike fits into your life? Like lifestyle design wise, how do you think it fits in?
Yeah. That's a great question. I don't think it will ever be for fitness. I mean, maybe it will. Maybe one day I'll be like, you know what? Yes, I want to like do the 100-mile bike or whatever, however long people ride bikes for. And I'll be stoked about it. I want to do it. But really, it's like it just to explore and like it would be my daily commute. I would 100% ride it every single day to commute. Like if it wasn't like crazy raining or snowing outside, like I won't get on the subway again. Not even for like safety reasons or with coronavirus. It's literally just like it takes less time and is way more enjoyable riding my bike from Washington Heights downtown, and it's so beautiful and you're out in the air and like it's such a beautiful ride that I would never go back to taking the subway, like packing on a subway in the morning. You know what I mean? Outside of coronavirus, like now knowing this, I'm like, no, I'm never going back. So daily commute for sure, and then leisure and pleasure. I mean, I think what I did not expect at all, which is silly that I didn't expect this, but like, I feel fucking great mentally. Mental health, I'm like, this is great. I'm outside, like you're in the sun, you're breathing, right? So you're breathing. And on a bike, you're kind of in like that position, right? So I'm breathing into my upper back. I'm like feeling good. Yeah.
Yeah, you got a serratus.
You got a serratus on there. And so it's like, I just feel so mentally good being outside riding. And
Yeah.
and there is yeah, there is a sense of like being a kid again.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I literally haven't ridden a bike, not because I live in New York for sure. Not when even when I lived in Michigan. I was probably a kid when I actually like rode a bike just for fun. And
Right.
like going out to the city, especially when there are not any like not a ton of cars around, and just exploring places that I have never been, or just roads I wouldn't naturally go down. You know, because
Right.
we have our routines. We go to this place and we go to that place. We take
Totally.
the subway. Like I don't need to go all the way over to one side to do anything. But like exploring the city and like being a tourist again, like in it,
Hmm.
out in it, and not in a cab,
Yeah.
and like paying attention because you have to, or else, you know,
Right.
um, it is just amazing. And I felt like riding down Riverside. We rode down or up Riverside Drive. So
Hmm.
instead of taking the Greenway, like Riverside is fucking beautiful. And I
It's
like the first time,
gorgeous.
yeah. What the first
Do you
time
like
we
get
rode
on right
down,
by
I
the
was like
hospital?
crying. Yeah, I was
You
just
I mean
like,
it goes all the way.
it's so, yeah, it's so beautiful and so green and like
Hmm.
it felt like I was not in New York City. I was like it felt like I
Right.
was a tourist, like I was at a new place. And so yes, that was a very long answer to say like it will be part of my commute, it'll be part of my leisure, it'll be part of my mental health. And not because, and I honestly not even intentionally, like I
Yeah.
just enjoy it, so I'm going to do it. And you
Right.
know, that's how that will play out.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I mean, I'm fully aware that none of that answer was about fitness. None of that was about
Yeah.
like interval training or like burning calories or like aerobic capacity or
Mm-hmm.
nasal breathe. Like none of it was just like, it's fun. I like it. I can include this as part of my life. Um, you know, it's funny. It makes me think about something. I wrote this, I think, last year after getting back from Amsterdam, and I see Caitlin Condi's comment that cycling is the best. After going to Amsterdam, Katie and I were there like literally a year ago. And I realized that I saw so many people riding bikes around the city in like button down shirts and like slacks and like dress shoes. I saw like a ton of women in heels and like the arch of the heel was just on the pedal. And like if there was like the whatever the back of the heel part was just like floating in space. Like you don't
Yep.
fucking need that when you're on a pedal. And I didn't see, I think I saw one cyclist, and that's why I thought about it. I saw like one person in Lycra with like super wraparound glasses, and I was like, oh, like this is just transportation.
Yes.
And I like that you're
Yeah.
like, I can ride my bike to work.
Yeah. And have it be a more enjoyable experience for sure. I mean, some of the fitness components I will love about it, like
Yeah.
doing any kind of aerobic work has been like such a challenge for me, I'll say. I
Yeah.
just like I don't like it. I don't necessarily want to do it. I know I have to do it, and I know you know, it will make everything else better. I know it'll make my lifts better. I know,
Right.
but I just like don't really like it. And like doing this does not feel like that at all, even though it is.
Yeah.
And so if I can do something that doesn't feel like I'm working out and I love it, and it's
Hmm.
gonna have a good effect on my lifting, done.
Yeah. Yo, I
Done.
love that. So I was talking with Sandeep the other day. You know Sandeep Achanta from where does he live right now? Bangalore. I think he's moving to Chennai.
We have not met, but I do know who you're talking about.
I fucking love Sandeep. We've been having so many really good conversations, and we were talking about sort of like this chicken and the egg argument of what comes first, like formal training or recreation. And one of the things I've been writing about a lot is like I think recreation for a lot of us should come first. And Sandeep was like, yeah, but if rather than saying here's the workout plan, you're just saying go outside and play, and there's no structure to it, then that is alienating to the point where it doesn't come first because nobody wants to do it. And so we were talking about how if somebody was active as a kid and they are fortunate enough to stay active through adolescence and then into adulthood, they probably take that active lifestyle and then add exercise to it. And for a lot of people, which the vast majority of people were active as kids and then stopped being active. And then as adults, they learn to exercise. And then one of the benefits of having that foundation of fitness is you can then go do other things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it makes me
totally.
think about like you've been lifting weights for how many years?
20.
Right? You've been lifting weights for 20 years.
Yeah.
And now you're like, oh, here's this thing that's really, really fun. And it has nothing to do with fitness, but it happens to improve your fitness, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Well, it will for sure. When I keep doing it, it absolutely will. I think too, I mean, just what you said, like, I mean, like, so we got our bikes, yeah, last Saturday.
Mhm.
We've ridden every day, but it's like the ability to just get on a bike and like one day do 25 miles, the next day do 31 miles, just like, we're just going to go out and do this.
Yeah.
Like, I feel so grateful. I think about this all the time, like, or going on hikes, right? Where it's like, we're taking a vacation in California, we're like, let's go do a hard hike. And just that we are able-bodied enough and trained enough to be able to jump into something else. I feel so grateful that I have the foundation of strength and like fitness, that it does make activity and any kind of leisurely activity just doable. Where it's like, there's no question, if you were like tomorrow, like, let's go on a bike ride. And I'll be like, I can hang with Harold. I mean, even if I can't, you probably go way faster than I do. But I would be up for it. I wouldn't say no. I wouldn't feel like I couldn't do it. Or like to do a hike where it's like, let's go do this hard hike. I feel like I could physically do it. That wouldn't be a question in my mind if I could or couldn't. And I think that is one of the, I think on what you were saying with Sandeep, that conversation is like, as an adult, if you are not physically equipped to be able to do recreational stuff, it does become scary and you do avoid it. But like, you know, knowing that your body can do something and then just trying a different challenge or this new thing, I think there's a lot more comfort and security in your own abilities than, you know, not having that foundation of fitness. But I do agree, like, if you were a kid and you played and then you like played sports and stuff and then you kept playing and then you got into some fitness because, you know, we're grown-ups now and you're supposed to go to the gym and lift weights apparently.
You're not supposed to ever play games anymore. It's just only exercise.
Yeah, for sure. It's like I can see both, but I do see a world where, you know, it's like, even if you think about a lot of like our ninja population who weren't active as kids, and telling them to go play is like, what do I do? Do I play tennis? How do I do that? Like, do I have to be in front of other people? But like giving them some structure and a foundation of strength and aerobic capacity, right, to be able to then go do other things, I think is huge for people. So yeah, I don't know, I see both sides, but
it's funny, the thing that you just said about like it's just play is so unstructured. Ironically, I'm going to refer to the conversation, but Sandeep is doing some martial arts right now, and he was like, our teacher was like, go play, and everyone was like what? Like, how do I play? And I was thinking about, you know, Indian clubs, like if somebody's like turning clubs, right? I was like, Sandeep, like in the fitness world, we really teachers love being able to teach. So if you're like, hey, here's this instrument and let's practice this form of movement, but also like you probably get pretty close to the arm mechanics of turning a club if you're playing badminton. So why can't we just be like, go play badminton? And Sandeep was like, yeah, but if you're just like, go play badminton and somebody's never played before, then they're not equipped to do that.
Yeah.
So you have to like lay the foundation and be like, look, turn your club, right? And then upon that foundation, now add this element of play. And I really like that for us, specifically at MFF, like the fitness experience would be just riding a bike, right? If you're at any commercial gym, there's bikes. Down at the Bowery, we've got the Airdyne. That would be like the fitness experience. I don't know anyone who's like, let me go ride 30 miles on the Airdyne. That sounds terrible. That sounds terrible. But I like that we can differentiate like the same modality. It's still a bike, but one is for fitness and one is for leisure. And what did you say before? Before you were referring to the leisure activities, and I feel like the foundation of fitness makes those activities less intense and more leisure.
100%.
Like if you can build up enough physical capacity, then the hike that used to be hard is now easier. The bike ride that used to be hard is now easier.
Yep, totally. Even like throwing, like Riley and I got a football because one, we're lesbians, and two, because we want to just be outside and play, right?
Right.
And so we're like, let's get a football and throw it around. And like even that, like being able to throw a ball, right? Anything you have in the shoulder or be able to like turn and pivot, like do things and run to catch a ball. It's like having that foundation to be able to do that super simple thing where it's like just your hand, just throwing a ball to somebody that's standing 10 feet away from you. But there is something that's so transferable about the things that we practice in fitness. Even when you don't realize it, where it's like, oh, I know how to do this. My body does this. I rotate. I, move laterally in a frontal plane. Yeah. But it is like, but if you don't have that, it is kind of weird, right? It's like if you don't have that foundation, it's kind of weird.
It's funny this morning. It's funny that you bring that up because this morning I we went out, Katie and I went outside. She's like working on bike skills. So I was helping Katie with some bike skills. And I saw two kids, like maybe like 6 and 10 years old with their dad. And they're basically like pitcher, catcher, first base. It was adorable. So like kid throws the pitch. And if it's a hit, the dad catches it and throws it to first base. And it's adorable. It's so cute. We've seen them out there a few times. I saw that, and then I saw a guy kicking a soccer ball against one of the walls in Jackie Robinson Park. And I got inside, and I was like, man, that was really cool. And I like open Instagram because I was going to post something. And the first thing I see is like agility ladder and cones on a turf field. And I was like, fuck. And the thing that I tweeted was every time a coach, or anybody, but anytime a coach brings a weight and agility ladder out onto the field, to me, that's a missed opportunity to grab a friend and grab a ball and just go throw the ball around. Yeah. And I'm trying to filter this through the chicken or the egg, fitness or fun conversation that I had with Sandy. And I realized that it used to be 20 years ago, to enhance your ability to play a sport, you went into the weight room and trained. And the training sort of looked like the sport, right? Like, I think Eric Cressy made throwing medicine balls really popular for baseball players. But now, throwing medicine balls is popular for everybody. And it instead of saying just go to the batting cage, just go to the batting cage and like practice hitting balls. Mm-hmm. I think that now the order of operations in the modern fitness world is probably, hey, do you want to up the ante of your medicine ball throws? Add in the hand-eye coordination of a moving ball.
Sure.
So it's like totally backwards now.
Yeah. It is interesting, too, where it's like, bringing stuff out into the field. Because obviously it's like you have to work on, well, you don't have to, but, if you want to get better at a sport, like you should work on skills. You need to incorporate weight training. You need to do that thing. But there is something that I think that can't be learned by just doing fitness stuff that's so, like, sagittal, this to this. You're like thinking about the stuff, right? It's like you're thinking about movement, you're thinking about what you're supposed to be doing, like getting out and kicking a ball with or a couple of friends and just running around and moving and reacting. Like that's not really a thing. I mean, it's like if you're in a sport facility, like it is, right? But it's, in gyms we don't do that, but that's so transferable to what we actually do, right? To how we actually like live life or play sports. So it's like, yes, do like the fitness stuff, absolutely. But yeah, I feel you so hard on like, here's your field and here's your agility ladder. And, for professionals, there's a time and place for both, right? It's like they're doing that stuff and they're playing and they're doing whatever. But I do think that people, just like people that enjoy playing sports or doing whatever, we miss that. We like train. But it's like, let's go out and shoot hoops. Let's just go kick a ball around. Let's go throw a ball around. And like that is fun and it is play. And it also is fitness. Like there is a fitness component.
I think one of the things that I've been skeptical about recently is this hyper, I want to say like commodification of movement as fitness. Where like, I feel like, and for the whole world that could see this, like I've been part of this in the past. I'm like, no, you can't do that. You can't go do that fun thing. It has to be dedicated fitness. But one of the things that I'm realizing is that we can go participate in activities, and the purpose of the participation could be because it's fun, and the benefit could be that it improves your fitness.
Totally.
Like you could ride your bike and be like, I want to explore New York City, and you can explore the city, and you happen to do 3 hours of cardio. Or like, I know like Tanner Bays just popped in. Tanner and I were talking about golf the other day, and I was like, Tanner, you're like I think Tanner said like 5 to 8 handicap golfer. I was like, throw on a heart rate monitor, go to the range and hit some balls and try to see if that meets your aerobic base, and it happens to be power training, but you don't need to just go throw a medicine ball for the whole time.
Totally. Well, it's like high intensity continuous training.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's literally that is the conversation that Tanner and I had. We were like, it's high intensity continuous training.
Yeah, that's it. Tim, Harold, can you acknowledge me too?
Yeah, well, Tim Landicho is one of the people who first inspired the programming at MFF to use. Oh, Tanner, I like that you got your facts in there. So Tim first inspired us to use high intensity continuous training. The idea is like a powerful rep followed by a quick rest. And there are enough powerful reps over a long enough period of time that your heart rate gets elevated. And ironically, because Tim's in here, rather than somebody like walking on the treadmill and focusing on an aerobic zone or getting on a Stairmaster or an elliptical or anything, like Tim's a phenomenal dancer. Tim is a phenomenal dancer. I remember the moment that this flipped in my head where I remember thinking like, you know what? I bet Zumba, that most of the serious fitness professionals that I know would not want to participate in. But I bet Zumba is a better overall experience for most people because you're getting your heart rate, but you're dancing and you're in syncopation to the music and the people around you. And there's an emotional experience there that is not just about cardiac output.
I'm just gonna second your Zumba, and I will say, I don't know, she's not on here right now, but there is a woman in Kansas City when I lived there for a couple minutes, but let's not talk about Kansas City. She's a Zumba instructor, and I never taken Zumba because I'm like, I do fitness and I lift weights, and it's fucking stupid. But it was like before I was moving back to New York City, and I really enjoyed her as a person, and she's like, come take my class, and I was like, all right, I'll come take your Zumba class. And one, it was so much fun, but two, I almost threw up, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it was like a lot of like jumping around, and I was like, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna go full out, right? It was a little bit more, anaerobic for me than it should have been, but because I was like going full out for it. But like you get lost in it, and it's like you're dancing and it's fun, and there's music in these clubs. It's like MFF, right? Where it's like there are club lights, there's music, there's and you get lost in it, and it's not. It does feel like fun. It's like I dance with my friends instead of like, even though you are huffing and puffing, but there is something psychologically, I think, about Zumba or class like that, where it's like, of course people go do that because they're not getting yelled at. Nobody's telling them they're bad at something. They're all just dancing. They're having a good time. It's like be in your body and like do the thing. So yeah, Zumba. I mean, try a Zumba class. It's not bad.
Have you read the book The Joy of Movement from Kelly McGonigal?
I have not, but I know the book.
I feel like if it's a lot of confirmation bias for me, as probably will be for you. You're like, oh yeah, doing things in syncopation with other people when there's like a curated environment is super powerful, right? It's like powerful emotional experience. And one of the things I literally was writing this morning, I'm gonna take a video when we're done with this video, was that rather than trying to take a really, really serious fitness program, like rather than taking like a structured, periodized program for strength training and trying to make it like silly or fun and weaving in all of these like fun things to like get people to go in there. Recently, I've been thinking I would rather most people go do the activity that they absolutely fucking love and love that so much and be so passionate about doing that thing that they're like, how do I get better at doing that thing? And then I could be like, hey friend, here's exercise science. Like, use the exercise science to get better at this thing that you love. And so when I think about, like, Tanner playing golf or about Tim dancing or when I think about, like, any of the ninjas who are, like, literally Broadway performers, and I'm like, hey, I want you to have as much fun as possible doing that thing, and, like, some deadlifts will help you out. But you don't need to do a ton. You don't need to. I prefer if you love it. I would prefer if you like your exercise. Yeah. But you don't have to do it as long as you understand it's like a tool that sort of empowers everything else. Totally.
Absolutely. I want to just respond to Dancing Vix. That says within reason, because when you can't keep up, it feels shitty. Me in a bar class wolf. I'm just going to throw out. I only very specifically mean Zumba because I have also taken... I took when I first moved to the city. Geraldine, what's up, Geraldine? How you doing? When I first moved to the city, I worked at Lululemon with Stacey Jackson and Jen Frankel. We were all working together, and there was another person at Lulu that was a Physique 57 instructor, and she was like, "Come take my class." Because people, they're like, "Come take my class," and I'm like, "Got you, girl. I'm coming." I was in the wrong outfit because I basically rolled in like this and everybody was in their full Lulu, full makeup, full whatever. And I was like, oh, I'm definitely like homeless and a lesbian in this class. And it was crazy. The bar stuff I couldn't keep up with. The lactic acid buildup was so atrocious for me. I was like, I can't do this class. It was just like pulse, for an hour. So just know I could not keep up with that. And I was like, I can't go back to that. But Zumba was great.
Zumba was great.
Zumba was great.
I love, lactate.
Fucking hate
Lactate is really. Geraldine, do you fucking hate Zumba? Is that comment? It's funny because I see Caitlin's comments about I do love kettlebells. And it's funny because Condi, we've talked about this a lot. I know that you can't, Caitlin, Condi, I know that you can't respond to this if you're still there. Caitlin, Condi, and I have talked about kettlebells a lot, and there's a specific kettlebell teacher and an influencer who puts out a ton of content that I absolutely know gets people super excited about kettlebells. And every time I see like a new kettlebell combination, I see it. I'm like, all of that energy striving for increased complexity would be saved if instead of figuring out like a 14-step kettlebell combination, you were like, here's a racket and a tennis ball. Like every time. But also that's because like there's this continuum where I know in the world of strength and conditioning, where like there's that continuum where some like collegiate and professional strength coaches get really, really close to just being sports coaches. Yeah. And sometimes those sports coaches are like, let's get really, really close to the weight room. And we're in a different world, right? Like the private sector fitness is a totally different world where none of those rules really apply.
Yeah.
But I feel like they still inform everything that we're doing.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think too, like when you're saying Caitlin like loves kettlebells, I think there is something to be said for having a practice. Right? Mm-hmm. It's like if a kettlebell thing or whatever it is, like Ben, who's like mace bro.
Yeah.
Right? It's just like mace flows all day, which is like, I don't think my journey, I haven't done it yet, so I don't know. It's like maybe like biking where I'm like, this is the best. Like, yeah. And for him, that's like a flow state. And it is an aerobic practice, which again, aerobic is like, has nothing to do with his practice, but like, yeah. If you have a practice, almost like Tai Chi, right? And like, it's more of like a meditation. Awesome, right? It's like, do the practice. And it's like, if that's fun for you too, that's great. I think a lot of it is though, like just a practice and like mastery or movement. And it doesn't mean everything has to be a different thing, right? But I think there is something different about like not thinking at all about what you're doing and just like, I'm on a bike and look at that building. Oh my God, don't hit the car. Yeah. Like, it's all a fine line. It's all a fine line. But we do try to confine fitness into these little boxes and like, this is this and this is this, and these are kettlebells and this is biking. And it's like, I don't know.
Yeah. It's funny that you bring up the thing with Ben, because Ben and I had a conversation probably like last summer where he shared this incredibly complicated mace. I want to say performance because it was like that artistic. I saw this and I was like, that's a performance. Yeah. And I was like, hey, like, is this where people go when they enter the mace world? Is this where people go? Because I see that and I immediately think back to when I played lacrosse in high school and we like did all these cool stick tricks, right? We like, the goal was to learn enough stick control that you could hold onto the ball and not have it taken away from you. And I was like, why couldn't you just go play lacrosse? Why does it have to be this? And Ben explained it the same way that you just did in the comment that Caitlin left. He was like, it's a practice. It's not actually about the mace. The mace is a tool that facilitates that movement meditation and that awareness. And I remember in that moment being like, great, it's not black and white, it's super gray, and it's just figuring out exactly how you connect mind and body in a world that is incredibly consistent about separating them. Yeah,
totally. And it's like like with Ben, right? Or like Caitlin saying, yes, it's a meditation. Like some people sit down and meditate for 20 minutes and they breathe and they connect with something like that. And it's like other people do some kind of flow, or whatever that is. But yeah, it is. I think as fitness professionals, I'm definitely guilty of this. It's like, we just want to categorize everything. Mm-hmm. We want it to make sense in our brain. Well, this is this thing. It's like everything's a category, and it's like, I don't know. I can definitely like, meld them all together a little bit more. And even though things are like different, like what is a crossover? And also, I mean, this is a different subject, but like, why are people doing the things that they do? And I think now we're in a very different time than 8 weeks ago.
Right.
Where it's like movement in general for most people, whether it's riding a bike or practicing like slinging kettlebells or doing whatever, movement in general is going to be very different going forward.
Yeah.
Very
100%.
Yeah.
It's funny. Michael, do you remember Michael Easter? He popped in here before. Michael, let me know if you're still there. Michael posted something on Instagram. I think it was on his story within the last few weeks. And I read it and I feel like I just like meditated on this idea. I've got to go back and find it. And the note that I took from what he wrote was that the overarching reason that we all move is like the reason that we sweat. I know that sweating is not an indicator of a good workout, but the reason that we sweat is for a spiritual experience. Like, and regardless of how you define that, each of us personally wants to move in ways that move us. And when you refer to the practice, like a movement meditation as a way to be restorative, I feel like it's probably aerobic, but my guess is that there's a lot of activities that people gravitate to that are emotionally restorative movement practices. For you, it's riding a bike. My guess is you're not going to go climb up that hill underneath the GW Bridge 8 times in a row.
Yeah.
I did it once and I puked. It was terrible. But like, if you can just go around and sort of like explore this city that is your home and embrace it in new ways, and you're like, this is emotionally restorative, and I happen to be physically moving, like the movement, a secondary factor, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it is, yeah, it'll be interesting. And I know, because it's like, I know it is your journey. It is your like passion to like help people get outside and explore movement and play and do recreational things instead, like in either addition to the gym or sometimes instead. It's like this time right now, like this is Harold Gibbons' time to like, you know, show people how to do it, because gyms are going to be few and far between for a long time, and people are going to be scared to go. And what does movement and fitness look like when the gyms aren't open, when the gyms are at half capacity, when you're wearing a mask swinging a kettlebell inside?
Right.
How fun is that going to be? What else could you do that is emotionally, you know, as fulfilling as doing something like that with a community that maybe isn't there anymore, unfortunately?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and like I really do. I want people to get back to the communities that they hold so dear, that they held so dear before coronavirus. And I want all of the gym businesses in the world to succeed. And I have a feeling that formal fitness inside gyms is going to be basically like governed by weightlifting, because my guess is as New York opens up in the future and as all the states in America open back up, my guess is that if you can do bodyweight workouts from home, people are going to stay home while it's safer, or while the ease of the risk of the commute is gone. And so my guess is gyms are going to look more like gyms, and that we're going to have like this weird hybrid, not weird, but we're going to have this hybrid world where like some stuff is online, some stuff is at home, some stuff is in gyms. And my hope is that a lot of people in this time get to explore their neighborhoods, their environments. They get to go to the parks at their house and throw a ball or ride a bike or play a game or go to a dance class and sort of explore what movement looks like outside of the gyms, because we literally can't go to them right now.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, just to touch on that point too, right? Where it's like, it will likely be more lifting, mostly because we are not going to be able to pack people into a class and then breathe on each other. So most classes are aerobic, and there's a lot of air happening, where it's like in gyms in general, it's like, you know, like MFF, for instance, like if we're in the dragon layer, we can be like, this is your rack, this is your rack, this is your rack. You're away from one another, and we can lift, and it's not aerobic.
Right.
For the most part, it's not aerobic. So it's definitely a lot safer of an environment to be lifting in a gym than to be packing and doing classes together and breathe. Can you hear that sound?
I heard the buzz. Yeah. No, I heard it. My phone vibrated. It's funny because Katie and I went for this bike ride the other day, and I saw this massive gym, like up in the suburbs of Westchester. Massive facility. It was a rec center, and I thought to myself that if I could go back, if I could go back in time to like when I was in high school, or if you pulled bikes out of my life, if you could like Men in Black flash for me and bikes were gone, I probably would spend like 2 or 3 hours a week lifting weights, and that would be my strength training. And then all of my cardio would just be like figuring out what sport I was going to play for the day.
Totally.
I literally was like, whoa, wouldn't it be cool if you could like go into a gymnasium, not a gym, a gymnasium, and be like, I guess today I'll play basketball. I guess today I'll play volleyball. I guess today I'll play soccer. And like, just choose that way.
Totally. Well, I mean, we can talk about this forever, but I think there is like, because I think for you and I, where it's like, we played sports, we move, like, if you're like, let's go play a sport that I haven't played before, like, fucking play. Like, let's go. I'm going to play this sport, and like I'll probably be okay.
Yeah.
I won't be great depending on the sport, but it's like, but I can go hang and I can go play. I think, for a lot of people who have not moved, that is also like a terrifying thing to be like, here's a basketball, let's go shoot hoops. And it's like,
Right.
there's no fucking way. We're just like, drill the shoot. There's just, it's not, it's not a thing that's going to happen. It is a very, it's a wild thing to be like, we grew up playing sports and just people just don't have those experiences. I think too, as adults, especially outside of New York City, where it's like, we have adult dance classes.
Right.
We have where it's like, you want to go do a dance class? There are a million boutique,
Everything.
Broadway Dance Center. You can go learn how to tap dance. You can learn how to do ballet. You can do this stuff in a class kind of like anonymously. But outside of New York, if you haven't played sports before, there's not like adult dance.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's not other ways for people to kind of explore their body or their athleticism or it is for the middle of the country. I think it's just a very different thing if you haven't played sports and you don't feel comfortable playing. So It's like, I know folks are bullied in high school because they were bad at sports. And that's like a traumatic thing, right? It's like a traumatic thing where it's like, could there be play? And it's very psychological.
Yeah.
Right? Because I agree. It's like, I do the same. Where I'm like, I'm going to lift a couple days. Let's go outside and ride bikes. I'm going to go play basketball. I'm going to shoot hoops. I'm going to play basketball.
Right.
Let's throw around a football enough that we're running and have to catch it. And I think a lot of people don't have those options. And it's like, what is the option of some kind of play, specifically outside of New York, where it's like they don't have the dance classes or the other boutique, 305 fitness where you're like doing Zumba, doing dancey things.
Right. It's like you're going to a club, but it happens at 6 p.m. after you get out of work.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. It's funny. I was talking with Geronimo and I had a conversation about like, what if fitness communities were built the way that religious communities are built, the way that congregations are built is so close knit. And we've sort of had this like philosophical discussion about it. And one of like such simple action steps that we thought of was like, why don't the leagues that are soccer leagues for kids or basketball leagues for kids or fill in the blank sports league, why don't they run a concurrent adult sports league at the same exact time? Like, I remember going to soccer practice and all the parents just stood around watching soccer practice, but one of the parents was coaching. So like, it would make sense to my now adult brain that there should be one field should be the kids should be playing on this field and the adults should be playing on this field, or like doing something similar so that it's not like take your kid to soccer practice. Also, I don't have kids and I live in New York City, so I can just go out to the field. But like, it would make sense to me if you go to drop your kids off at soccer practice and you're going to stay there, that you also go to soccer practice.
Yeah, totally. I mean, yes. And I mean, I'm sure, there are so many sides to that, right? Where it's like, people are like, I'm fucking tired. I just worked all day. And like, the last thing I want to do is move around, which people would absolutely feel better if they did that. But yeah, man, it's an interesting thing that we like take kids to do these things. And then we're just like, we just sit or stand or wait around. I know, especially like have them do it together. Yeah. It's
Chelsea Lee, that's totally it.
Just do it together, just play together. But yeah, no, I think that's like very on point where it's like, what could the adults be doing while the kids are playing?
Yeah.
Could be playing.
I reached out to Matt Wilson the other day because Matt gave the MFF team that lecture about play like 5 years ago. And I was like, Matt, do you have that lecture? Like, I want to review it. I have a book from the library that's the interpersonal neurobiology of play. And it's like, here are all this like exquisite amount of science that basically supports go play. And I like that one of the simplest pieces of modern technology, the bicycle, is this thing that sort of like opened your eyes to like, I can just like go out and explore.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll just throw this out too, because that's like why we got the football where we're like, whatever. It's sad. Just like our state of the world in general, and like the things that we worked for. We need to get to the next level and do the next thing and make this amount of money, and I can't do this because I'm busy and then I'm tired and I have to do this thing. Where it's like, it took a global pandemic for me to be like, let's go get a football and throw it around the field. That sounds like so much fun. Oh my gosh, let's go ride bikes. That sounds like so much fun. It's like a really sad reality where I'm like, very personally got sucked so into work where I could literally work from the time I got up in the morning to the time I went to bed at night. And I was anxious. I didn't feel my best for sure.
Right.
But it felt like I had to keep doing this thing. And it took something this massive globally to be like, we can play a little bit now. And it's, I mean, I'm not saying, you know, this is a terrible fucking thing, but I would like it to be over very soon.
Yeah.
But it took this, I think, for a lot of people to be like, resting sometimes is okay. Playing just for fun, but not doing fitness, like not working towards something 24/7 every day of the year is like okay, and it feels good. Feels good.
Jamie Monahan posted something that it was, I'm going to misquote it, Jamie, I'm so sorry, but she posted something like 2 weeks ago, and it was like, while everyone's focused on trying to return back to normal or get back to normal, think about what parts of normal are actually worth returning to. And I feel like the perspective in that was massive to me, because it's like, oh, like there are parts of the what was it, March 17th? There's parts of that pre-March 17th life where I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to go do that thing once we're allowed out and about, or once it is safe to socialize or go to work all the time, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Riley and I talk about this a lot, right? Where it's like, we're a capitalist country and we like money and we all work toward money and like, you know, power and whatever. But it's like when we first started walking before we had bikes, we're like, let's go walk on the Greenway and see what that's like. We're like, what if we just scheduled time in our day to walk together? Like, wouldn't it be nice if we didn't like do this other stuff that we were doing before, but it was so routine, and there was a ton of stuff that I don't want to return back to literally ever. And like making time or like finding ways that bike riding is just in my life every day. Or like taking a walk with my wife, or like throwing a football around and having fun. Like that has been a huge silver lining for me, to just like chill out and actually like play like a kid again. And I cannot tell you what it's done truly for my mental health. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so dope. I love that. Do you know what time it is, by the way?
I'm seeing it right now. It's 5:48.
Okay, great. Because I was like, I know I said 5:30, but we just kept going. We kept going. Chelsea Lee is totally right. Our culture, it scrolled, conflates people's. Oh, I lost it.
People value their productivity.
Yeah. I want to add one more note to this, because you just said we're a capitalist country. I've been trying to interpret what's going on in the fitness industry in the last, let's say, like 15, 20 years through the lens of some of the work of Noam Chomsky, talking about like I don't think that in high school government I gave a shit at all. I'm so sorry, Mr. Kellner. But now I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, the fitness industry basically has told people that to move their bodies, it has to be in gyms. And I think that basically since COVID-19 was like, hold up to the entire fitness industry, we're learning how to move our bodies in ways that are probably more emotionally empowering and uplifting, which is rad. I'm so glad that you got your bike, and that you're sharing how exciting it is for you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I know you've been talking about it for years, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I just don't get it. And then the first time I did it, I was like, I get it. I said to Riley too, I was like, now I know why Harold rides his bike for like 2 hours every day, because it's amazing. I get it. So thank you for sharing your passion and for indulging all of my texts to you to be like, I rode my bike here today. I rode my bike here. I
love it. I know that we still have to figure out like when our schedules line up so we can go for a bike ride together. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out. I know that Simon, our beloved Ninja Simon, was like, Harold, you've got to figure out like some sort of like socially distant bike ride thing. So it's a thing I got to work on. I got to figure out like when we could ride together and figure out. Figure out good.
I'm down.
Wheels, you are the best. Thank you for coming on here and sharing your story.
Thanks for having me.
Mwah.
Bye, everybody.
Mwah. Bye, y'all. I love you all. This life.